Hello everyone and welcome to today's class. Today's class is actually, we've recorded this class, so we're not broadcasting live today. Unfortunately, we weren't able to broadcast live today, so we've recorded this lesson that we're going to be doing. But the good thing is that this is an arcade lesson that we're going to be doing. So we're going to be making an arcade space shooter game. So this is giving us more practice, so our skills are even better, so that when we do the arcade build battles next Wednesday, we're all going to be so much better at using arcade, and what we produce and what we make next week is just going to be that much better. Okay, so what are we going to be doing? So we're going to be making an arcade space shooter game. So let me just scroll down to the bottom here so I can get a little animation of what we're going to be making. So we're going to be making this game here. So you're going to control this spaceship, and there's going to be asteroids firing in from the right hand side towards you. And you'll need to move around the screen firing rockets at them to destroy them and not get hit. If you do get hit by an asteroid, you lose a life. But if you do shoot an asteroid down with one of your rockets, you get a point. So it's going to be a really cool game. And what's also really excellent about this is that we are going to design all the elements on the screen. We're going to design the spaceship, the asteroids, and the rockets. So it's all going to be our own kind of customized game. Okay, so there are 10 steps in this, well, kind of 9 steps, and then the 10th step is a challenge that we're going to do at the end, or that you're going to do at the end. Okay, so the way this is going to work is normally with a live broadcast, you know, I show you how to do a lesson, or I show you how to do a step, and then I chat for a bit, which gives you a bit of time to go ahead and do the step. So this way it's going to be slightly different. I'm just going to show you how to do a step, and then if you want to press pause on the video, you go ahead and do the step, then press play. I'll show you step number 2, press pause, you do step number 2, press play, I'll show you step number 3, and so on. And that's the way we'll kind of work our way down through this lesson. But this is one of my favorite arcade lessons, one of my favorite projects to make. It's so cool. Okay, so let's get going. The very first step is to open up the arcades.makecode.com website. So we click on the link in step number 1, it'll open up a new tab of the arcade website, and then we're going to click on the big orange new project button, and we will type in space shooter, or call it whatever you want. I'm going to call mine space shooter, SPACESHOOTER, and click on create, and that's going to open up the arcade project editor ready for us to create our project. So I'm going to mark step number 1 as done. So if you want to pause the video, go ahead and do step number 1 and come back and press play. And then we'll move on to step number 2, which is to create your spaceship sprite. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to design our own spaceship sprite and store it in this variable called spaceship. So let's add in this code. It's going to go into the onStart block. So let me zoom in slightly so it's easier to see. We're going to go into the sprites toolbox up the very top and get the first block there that says set my sprite to sprite of kind player, and that goes inside the onStart. Now, we are going to have lots of different sprites on the screen. So we're going to have our spaceship, we're going to have asteroids, we're going to have rockets, and they're all going to be sprites. So it's very important that we name our variables to something that makes sense. Otherwise, we're not going to really know. When we're creating code, we won't know which sprite is for which. So if we want to, you know, set the speed of one, we're going to need to know what variable, what sprite to set it on. So at the moment, this is called my sprite. So we need to rename this to be something that makes a bit more sense. So we're going to click on the white arrow here, and then click on rename variable, and it'll ask us what we want to rename it to. Let's type in spaceship, 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 and click on OK, and that will rename the variable to be spaceship. So now we know what the spaceship variable is. It's the one that stores the spaceship sprite. So when we create the asteroids and we create the projectiles, we'll name them asteroids and projectiles so we know which is which. Okay, so let's design our spaceship. So to do that, click on the gray box. That'll open up the spaceship editor. Normally what I do is I just kind of draw a small little triangle like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. I fill it in white, and then I draw some kind of flames coming out of the bottom using red, orange, and a little bit of yellow, just something like that. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you want to spend a bit of extra time, you know, making yours exactly as you want it, go ahead and spend the time. But I'm happy enough with that. So once I'm done, I click on the green done button down here, down the bottom right. And we'll see that it populates the block with my spaceship, and then also my handheld simulator over here, my game simulator refreshes, and I have my spaceship in the middle. Okay, I'm going to mark step number 2 as done. Let's see what I got. I got a soccer celebration spite, football. So I think that's Falcao. Yeah, Falcao. I don't know if anyone remembers Falcao. Who did he play for? Well, he was playing for Monaco there, but he also played for Man United for a while. Who else did he play for? Oh, can't even remember who else he played for, but he was a decent enough striker. Okay, so now we'll move on to step number 3. And step number 3, we're going to control the spaceship. So we're going to hook up the buttons. So when you move, press the up, down, left and right arrows on your keyboard, or when you move this toggle, it'll move your spaceship around. But then we're going to do that by adding in the move spaceship with buttons VX, VY block. But then we're also going to set the spaceship to stay on the screen. So when you try and move off the screen, it'll kind of bump against the side. It won't let you go off the screen because we do need our spaceship to stay on the screen. Okay, so let's add in this code. So I'm going to switch to our tab for adding in the make code arcade project editor. And I'm going to go into the controller toolbox. And the very first block there is move my sprite with buttons. And that goes inside the on start. But very importantly, I need to change this because at the moment it says move my sprite. And what I want to do is move the spaceship. So I'm going to click on the white arrow and then change this to be spaceship. So move spaceship with buttons. And then if I click on the plus, I can change the VX and the VY. So if you remember, the VX is for the velocity X, or moving left and right. And the VY is velocity Y for the Y axis, moving up and down. So I'm going to set both of these to be 150. And when my code refreshes here, I can use the keys, arrow keys on my keyboard to move around, or I can even drag this toggle around and you'll see that the sprite moves around. If I move off the screen, it does actually move off the screen. So that's why we need to add in this next block. We go into sprites and we go down to effects. And in here, there's set my sprite stay in screen on. We're going to drag this block in, put it inside the on start, and again change it to be spaceship. So now when our code refreshes over here, when I try and go off the screen, I can't. It just keeps you on the screen, and that's important for this game. Okay, if you want to go ahead and do that for controlling the spaceship. And then we'll move on to step number 4. So step number 4, we're just going to set the number of lives. So as I said at the start, you're going to have a certain number of lives, 3 lives at the start. And if you crash into an asteroid, you're going to lose a life each time. So to add in lives into the game, we just need to use the set life to block. And we're going to set it to be 3. This goes inside the on start because the on start block runs at the start. So when you turn on the game, this code runs. So anything you want to set up at the start of the game goes inside the on start block. So let's add it in. We're going to go into the info toolbox and go down to set life to 3. So get the set life to 3 block, and that goes inside the on start. When our code refreshes, you'll see that we'll get 3 hearts up the top left. If I was to change this to be 10, what it does is puts in a heart and then an X10, so heart multiplied by 10, so it shows you the amount up there. But we'll go with 3 for the moment. But if you want to put in a different amount, go with whatever amount you want in there. Okay, so let's mark step number 4 as done and see what we got. We got Homer retreating into the hedge, and now we'll move on to step number 5. Step number 5, we're going to create the asteroids. So as I said, we're designing everything in this game. So we're going to design an asteroid, but we're going to use this block on game update every 1000 ms. Okay, so what's ms? Ms is milliseconds. So every 1000 milliseconds, and there's 1000 milliseconds in a second. So every second, we're going to create a new asteroid, and it's going to be set to be a type of a sprite of kind enemy. So that now we know when an enemy and a player sprite, if they overlap, we'll be able to detect that. So we set this to be an enemy. So let's add in the code. We're going to go into the game toolbox and get the block on game update every 500 ms. I'm just going to move this code across so we can see it nice and clearly. And we're going to change this to be 1 second. So click on the white arrow and change it to be 1 second. And then we're going to go into the sprites toolbox. And we're going to get this first block again, set my sprite to sprite of kind player. And that goes inside the game on game update every 1000 ms. And what we're going to do again is we're going to rename this. So we want to call this asteroid. So we're going to click on the white arrow, go down to rename variable and type in asteroid, A-S-T-E-R-O-I-D, asteroid, and click on OK. And then very importantly, we're going to change it to be a kind enemy. So click on the white arrow and then choose enemy. And then you can go in and design your sprite. So click on the gray box and it opens up the sprite editor. So when I'm drawing asteroids, normally what I do is just choose this kind of creamy brown color and just draw a kind of rough circle. It doesn't need to be perfect because it's an asteroid. It's not going to be kind of uniform in its shape. Or symmetrical. And then I choose the paint bucket tool and fill it in, back to the pencil tool and choose a different color and just kind of draw in a couple of, shadows that might be on it like that. And then click on the green done button down the bottom. So now every 1 second, a new asteroid is going to be created. And because we're not telling it where to create it, it's just going to create it in the center of the screen. Now you can actually see it, but every 1 second, a new asteroid is being created, but they're being created over each other. So you can just see one there at the top. Okay, so let's mark that as done. See what we got. We've got a little celebration dance. And we'll move on to step number 6. So here's where we're going to program the asteroids. So we're going to get them to come in from the right-hand side, and they're going to come in at different levels. Okay, so they might come in at the top or the bottom or the middle, and they're going to come in at different speeds as well. So just to make it a bit more challenging, you don't want your game to be predictable. You want it unpredictable, so it's a bit more challenging for everyone to do that. Okay, so let's take a look at the code that we're going to add. We're going to say that we're going to set the velocity Vx to be a random number between -20 and -100. So what that does is as they're moving in from the right hand side, they're going to move in at different speeds. So to move right to left, we need to put in a minus figure in between in Vx. And we're going to set the Vy to be 0 because we don't want the asteroids going up or down, just coming straight across. Then we're going to set the position of the asteroids. So we're going to, when they are created, we're going to set the X position to be 160, which is going to be off the right-hand side of the screen. And then the Y position is going to be a random number between 0 and 120. So somewhere, between the top and the bottom of the screen. And then finally, we're going to use this block here, set asteroid to auto destroy on. And what that does is it's going to destroy the asteroid once it moves off the screen. Sorry, I should do it this way. Once an asteroid moves off the screen, because otherwise we're just going to have loads of asteroids collecting, on the other side of our screen. We can't see them, but the code needs to remember them, and that takes up memory. So if loads and loads of them build up, it takes up more and more memory, and our game might get a little bit laggy. We don't want that. So just to kind of clean up our code a little bit, we're going to say auto destroy on. So when it moves, an asteroid moves off the screen, the game just destroys it and forgets about it. Okay, so let's add in the code. So we're going to switch to our code editor and go into the sprites toolbox, and we're going to get set my sprite velocity to Vx Vy, and we'll change it to be spaceship. Oh, sorry, not spaceship, asteroid, because this is for the asteroids. And that's why we named our variables, something that made sense. So as we can see at the moment, it's the asteroids are creating every 1 second, but the Vx and the Vy are set to 50, and that's making it go to the right and down. So we'll set the VY to be 0. So now it won't go up or down. We'll see it when it refreshes. It's moving the wrong way though. So we want to go into math, and we're going to get pick random 0 to 10. And in here, we're going to type in -20 and 100. So pick a random number. Oh, sorry, -100. Very important. So pick a random number between -20 and -100. And we'll see now that they go from the right to the left and at different speeds. They're still getting created in the center, so that's the next thing. We need to set them to get created somewhere here on the right hand side of the screen, up and down between the top and the bottom. So we're going to go into the sprites toolbox and get set my sprite position to x0, y0, put that in, again change it to be asteroid. The X position is going to be off the screen, which is 160. You can see when I drag around here, the X goes to 160. So we'll set that to be 160. And the Y position, we want it between Y0 and Y120. So to get created somewhere along here. So again, we need another random. So pick random number. So into math, get pick random 0 to 10. Let's move all this across. And we're going to say between 0 and 120. So that's for the, oh, sorry, I put that in the wrong place. I put that in VY. That goes into the Y number of the set asteroid position. So now they get created on the right-hand side, different positions, and they come in at different speeds. So we can see the randomness here happening, and we can see how this could start being challenging and enjoyable to play. And then finally, we're going to put in the auto destroy. So again, into the sprites toolbox. This time we'll go down to effects. And in here, there's set my sprite auto destroy, and it's going to be set to off, but we need to change it to be asteroid, and then set it to be on. So when the sprites move all the way through, when they collect over here off the screen, the code actually just destroys them and forgets about them. So we're not taking up precious memory. Okay, so I'm going to mark step number 6 as done. And get a funny puppy doing a little celebration dance. And we'll move on to step number 7. So here's where we're going to fire the rockets. So what we're going to do is when you, let me show you this first, the code. We're going to program the A button. So the A button on the console here, or it's also the space key on your keyboard. When you press that, we're going to create a projectile. We're going to design our projectile, and we're going to create it from our spaceship. So wherever our spaceship is in the game, when you press the A button or the space key, that's where the projectile is going to get created from wherever your spaceship is. And what speed is it going to go? It's going to go at Vx, velocity x 200. So that'll make it move from the left to the right at speed 200. And the Vy is 0 because it's not going to move up or down. Okay, so let's add in this code. Let's create a little bit of space. So I'm going to go into the controller toolbox and get on A button pressed. And then I'm going to go into the sprites toolbox and go down to the projectiles heading here. Projectiles. So we see we have 2 of these blocks, set projectile 2. The one we want is this one, set projectile 2, projectile from my sprite. So it gets created from your sprite. We'll choose spaceship there with Vx, Vy. So this is the one we want, and that goes inside the on A button pressed. And what we're going to do is we're going to change this to be spaceship. We're going to change Vy to be 0 and Vx to be 200, and then just design our projectile. So I like just a kind of rocket. So again, we click on the gray box, it opens up the editor, and all I'm going to do is just kind of draw a bit of it's almost like a plunger. So just the way I do it, you can do it whatever way you want, but I just draw a straight line, a little bit of a triangle, and then again, I use the red, orange, and yellow to kind of create the fire coming from behind it like that. If you want, you can kind of maybe put a tip on it or something like that, and then click on done. And that will populate into the block. But more importantly, when your game refreshes, when you press the space key, each time you press it, it will create the projectile from wherever your spaceship is on the screen. Okay, so it's pretty cool once you do add that in. Okay, so that is step number 7. So now we're going to move on to step number 8. So at the moment, when we shoot one of the asteroids, nothing happens. The projectile just goes straight through it and nothing happens. So what we need to do is detect when a projectile overlaps, a rocket overlaps with an asteroid. So to do that, we're going to add in this code here. It says on sprite of kind projectile overlaps other sprite of kind enemy. So basically it's detecting when a projectile sprite overlaps with an enemy sprite. Now, the enemy sprites are the asteroids, and there could be 5, 6 different asteroids on the screen. So what we need to do, we're going to destroy the asteroid. So which asteroid do you destroy? Because there's loads on the screen. Well, it's the one that is currently overlapping with the projectile, and that gets stored in this block here, the other sprite. So I'll show you how you add this and use it. I'm going to switch to my code. Let's move this down. And we're going to go into the sprites toolbox and go down to the overlaps heading. So there's an overlaps heading here, and I'm going to drag in this on sprite of kind player overlaps other sprite of kind player, and I'm going to change it so it says on sprite of kind projectile overlaps other sprite of kind enemy. So when a projectile hits an enemy, so your projectile is the rocket and the enemy is the asteroid. So when the projectile overlaps with a kind of enemy, we want to destroy it. So we're going to go into the sprites toolbox and get a destroy my sprite. But this is very important. We take out my sprite and throw it away into the trash. We don't need it. And we need to get this sprite, where the enemy sprite, the asteroid sprite that is currently overlapping with the projectile. And as I said, that's stored in this other sprite. So what we do is we drag out of here, and that creates a block that we can just put inside the destroy block. And then let's choose what effects by clicking on the plus. And I got to choose fire for say 200 ms. So that's just going to do a little effect when the rocket hits it. So look, when I shoot the asteroids now, the asteroid enemy sprite gets destroyed, but then it does that little fire animation for 200 ms. And then what we're also going to do is we are going to give ourselves a point. So we need to put in a change score by 1. So into the info toolbox, get change score by 1, and that goes inside the overlaps block as well. So now it'll automatically just start giving me points each time. So you see up the top right there, my points are going up each time I destroy one of the asteroids. So that's the really cool thing about Arcade, is that it's set up for making games. You can quickly make games. It's got all those cool instruction blocks you can use, just like change score or move with buttons. It's really quick with making games. Okay, so let's mark step number 8 as done. Oh, doing it too fast. Oh, that's not the celebration that I think you wanted. And let's move on to step number 9. So step number 9, we're going to lose a life. So in the same way we detected when a projectile overlaps with an asteroid, we're going to detect when the player overlaps with an asteroid. So when your spaceship crashes into an asteroid by accident, we're going to destroy the asteroid. We're going to shake the camera, which is kind of like that. And then we're going to change life by -1. So we're going to take away a life. The reason why we destroy the asteroid is if an asteroid is moving into a player and it overlaps and we take away a life, if we don't destroy that asteroid, it's just going to keep on overlapping with the asteroid or with the player, the spaceship, as it moves through, and going to keep on taking away lives. So we'll quickly one asteroid will take away all your lives. So that's why it's important that we destroy the asteroid and then we take away the life. Okay, so let's add in this code. So we need another one of these overlaps blocks. So we're going to go into the sprites toolbox, down to overlaps and bring in another block. So unkind player overlaps with kind player, but we need to change this. So player overlaps with enemy. So when our spaceship overlaps with an asteroid, we're going to destroy the asteroid. So get another destroy, get rid of my sprite, bring in other sprite. You can choose what effect. Maybe you want to do a different one. Let's do spray effect this time for 200 ms. And then we're going to shake the screen, which is kind of a really cool effect when you see it happening. So into scene, down to the camera heading, and get camera shake by 4 pixels. So that's how much it kind of offsets, how much it moves for 500 ms, so for half a second. And then we're also going to say change, oh, sorry, not change score. You don't get a point, you lose a life. So change life by -1. So into the info toolbox and change life by -1. Let's test if this works. So I'm going to intentionally crash into one. So you see the camera shake, you see me lose a life, and then also the asteroid gets destroyed. Okay, so that is step number 9. Let's see what I got. A glass. And that is all the code for the project. So it's a really cool game. I really like this one because you get to design everything in it. It's very playable in that it's kind of quite reactive when you can kind of shoot loads of rockets. And you have a score, so you can see how good you're doing. If you do crash into something by accident, then it does take away a life. So, you know, there are consequences. There we go. And it's, yeah, I really like that game. What I will say is, once you get the game finished, I'm going to challenge you to something. So in step number 10, as an extra challenge, I want you to think about how you would add a kind of power up or health into the game. So just like we have maybe the asteroids every 1 second appearing into the game, maybe every 10 seconds or 15 seconds, you could add in something else, which is health or a power up that might give you extra lives or something like that, or extra points. So have a think about how you would add that in and try and add it into the game by creating the code yourself. It's a good challenge to try and do it yourself. If you can't, if you don't get it working, we have put in the code here behind this grey button, so that will give you a hint on how to do it. But also, if you have any other ideas, you want to add in sound effects or anything else that you might think into that game, add it into the game and then click on share your project down here. And if you click on how to share an arcade project, it'll show you exactly how you do that. So share your project, share your link in here, and anyone who shares that project with your own idea or your own improvement into it, we'll have a look at them and we'll give away a prize to the best one, which we'll announce at next week's live class. And as I said at the start, next week's live class is our arcade build battles. So it's really good that we did another arcade project. So now we should be getting really good at creating code and games in arcade. So when we get to next week, everyone should be kind of be enjoying themselves and being able to create different things in arcade. So build battles, you get a certain amount of time to create projects. We're going to do a project, you have 10 minutes. Then we're going to do another one, you only have 5 minutes. And then finally, we're going to do one where you only have 1 minute, 60 seconds to create something. And we're going to share them and have a bit of a laugh and have some fun. So that's next Wednesday at 4:30. So I hope you enjoyed this project and I will see you next week. Bye.